Okay, can everybody hear me? Everybody who can hear me, please just put an I in the chat. Just put an I if you can hear. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Just I? Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So now let me push back up to what I was doing. So I appreciate to apologize for what's going on, but we had this taken care of. So what I'm getting ready to do, let me put these back up. And we should be okay. So we should be pretty good. But I need to blank myself out because if not, I'm up in the right corner. So let me turn myself off and that should blank me completely out. So let me see what's happening there. See, do I blank out? Yep, I blank out. So now let's finish doing what we was doing. And we have finished picking up. So now as I was sitting there and I was talking about the stark contrast to faith, the stark contrast to faith. And if my thank you, I really appreciate it, Sister Brown. So the stark contrast to faith stands the deception of faith. Faith. You see that FATE. That's a heathen concept that you can see that it infiltrated the thinking of people where they call themselves by the name of the Messiah. Faith. So rendering really people powerless before circumstances they believed that they were really predetermined and they were still seen unmutable, which I'm explaining that to you. Because this doctrine of faith is masquerades the eternal security. I want to make sure everybody understand where I'm coming from. It masquerades that. So it's do this through false teachings, meaning this: once saved, always saved. Everybody heard that term before. You just can say I as we're going through. Once saved, always saved. You'll hear that term a lot. That's faith. Faith. Y'all should see what I'm saying now. Wherein where you're taught that one single moment of belief, confess that what they say, Jesus Christ died upon the cross, rose from the dead, accepting him as your personal savior, it grants each and every one of us irrevocable salvation that can never be lost, regardless of your subsequent action or your faithfulness towards him. That's faith. No matter what, you can't lose it. So this poison doctrine, it transformed living, walking in faith where you have to keep doing something we won't get into because I'm going to have to go that direction. It teaches us that salvation, when you're in the position of faith, it teaches you the position that salvation is a one-time transaction. Everybody with me? I want to make sure everybody's following me here. Now it becomes a one-time transaction rather than an ongoing covenant relationship requiring a continual obedience to Jehovah's precepts and commandments. Everybody follow me? See, everybody, we should kind of start getting this because this belief system, faith. So this faith directly contradicts biblical revelations that Jehovah has established conditional covenants requiring ongoing faithfulness, ongoing obedience, ongoing righteous living. It contradicts that. So the scriptures abundantly testify that salvation is maintained through perseverance in faith, FAITH, in works. Y'all follow me? Everybody should get this now, because as evidenced by the warnings throughout the writings of the Bible, the possible of falling away, being cut off from the vine. He tells you this all the time. You're being cut off from the vine, or having one name blotted from the book of life. But they want to push you with faith. So when you're embracing the doctrine of faith, it disguises as grace. Y'all follow me? We should be getting this now. So what they do, they say, oh no, it's fate. No, it's not. It's disguised as grace, but it surrenders to divine calling to exercise your spiritual authority over earthly circumstances. That really is according to Jehovah's law, in order to, instead of adopting a passive, this Fatanism, and that's actually a word, Fatanism, and actually it's Fataalism. Yeah, I spell it again. I believe that's right. Fataalism. I spell phonetically, so if that's wrong, forgive me, but I spell phonetically. But that's Satanism. That's what it is. So, and then if they do that, it's a belief that all events are determined by fate. You follow me? All events are determined by fate. And then a destiny, they are unchangeable, rendering man's actions and efforts pointless. So when they excuses disobedience and nullifies the transformative power of genuine faith, this teaching renders what they do, the powerless, believing their eternal destiny was sealed at the single moment rather than understanding that faith is active. It's not static. It's a living force that must be exercised through daily adherence to the precepts of Jehovah and the religious examples of Yahushua, as he gave us the example. So he himself declared that only those who endure to the ends shall be saved. Y'all follow me? Everybody should be with me right now. Everybody should be with me. So we understand in faith based on fate. Everybody follow me. I just want to make sure everybody's still with me, because I had to go that direct. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Good, good, good. I just want to make sure everybody's with me, understanding what I'm talking about. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Thank you, guys. I'm glad you guys are getting this. So that's the point. So the true nature of divine dominion. So when Jehovah breathed into Adam the breath of life and established his steward over creation, he granted him dominion that was caretaking authority, not creative authority. You follow me? He gave him caretaking authority, not creative authority. So when we're looking at the Hebrew understanding of dominion, it signifies ruling, governing, and let me see what. I'm gonna have to kick him out. See, because I don't know why he came in here. So you finna get kicked out, and you won't be able to come back in. I don't know why he did that, because he should have came in. And the main thing is this. So with that, we got to understand exactly what that is. When we sit there and we look at this, the true dominion means true caring for, protecting, stewards, and work Jehovah's hands according to his design. Meaning is not modifying or recreating them according to man's wisdom, because we have caretaking authority, we don't have creative authority. So even as it is written, we're going to see this in Sirach, chapter 38. Actually, no, it's in 39. I don't know why I got 38 there. Let's look at Sirach 39 and 16. 39 and 16. And it says, all works of the Lord are exceedingly good. You follow that? All works of the Lord are exceedingly good. But you see what he says here. And whatsoever he commanded shall be accomplished in due season. So we understanding this. We're getting a better understanding of this. Man's role is to tend to the garden, not to redesign it. Everybody follow me? So as we're getting into this, to name the animals, not genetically to modify them, to cultivate the earth, not to corrupt it in its fundamental nature through artificial manipulation. Everybody follow me? So when we're looking at this, we got to understand this matrix. Faith dealing with faith. That's what we get. This is what all this is about. So we got to look at this under the matrix perversion of dominion. The matrix, the perversion of dominion. Because faith, F-A-T-E, faith is the matrix primary weapon against faith. Everybody follow me? This is why we got to run a different way right now, but we should get this. So faith, F-A-T-E, faith is the matrix primary weapon against faith. So it's convincing souls that they are victims to circumstances rather than victors through anointed ones. So the matrix operates through more subtle deception. It has even convinced man that their true dominion mean powerless to alter Jehovah's creation rather than the responsibility to steward them faithfully. Technically what he's doing. So this perversion has led to this unprecedented violation of divine order that demonstrates man's rebellion against proper spiritual authority. I'm going to explain some of this where we can really get what's going on, because we got to look at something now on the corruption of man, the corruption of man. So what I want to do, I want to take you into where we want to look at something, because when you're looking at modern science, you know what science is. Everybody should know what science is. But when you're looking at modern science, has transgressed the boundaries of divine law through genetic modification of human beings or man. Everybody follow me? I want to make sure everybody's staying with me, because I don't want you to get lost anywhere. So I want you to look at something. So through genetic modification, altering the image of God through humanity was created. So it's through technologies like CRISPR. Most people don't know CRISPR. Okay, I'm going to spell it for you, but then you can actually even go look this stuff up. You can even go look it up, because I know it's still out there. And CRISPR is CRISPR, and it's CRISPR genes. And if anybody got any PhDs here, they don't know exactly what I'm talking about, because it's gene editing. Scientists, they even modify human embryos doing this. They change genetic codes, and they believe they can improve upon Jehovah's design. Everybody follow me? Hopefully you follow me. This is what this does. This creates this synthetic biology, this artificial life form that never exists in Jehovah's creation. It is usurping the divine right to determine what lives and breathes upon the earth. That's what this does. So when we're looking at the matrix, it has convinced souls that this genetic disease justifying altering human DNA, but it assumes that Jehovah's design is flawed. You see what I'm saying? I know I'm mixing some legal with science, but I was trying to really get you to understand what's actually happening. Because we're in the matrix, but I want you to clearly understand where we are. So this flaw is recognizing that the disease entered through sin can be healed through spiritual authority. Actually, I'm going to show you something. Let's look at something. Actually, it's already here. We're going to look at this. And we'll look at this in Exodus chapter 15:26. It's already here. So actually, 15:26, it says, if thou wilt diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to the Spirit of thy God, and do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear unto his commandments, and keep all his statutes, and I will put none of these diseases. You see the catch? It's a catch here. I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, these sinful people. I am the Lord that healeth thee. I am the Spirit of God that healeth thee. You see what's going on? I appreciate it, my sister, putting that name there. But that's what this is called. So how this working is this. Jehovah created every seed bearing plant trees for food, declaring them, again, very good. Very good. So humanity, as we know as man today, has created genetically modified organisms, GMOs. So they did this in food that contains genetic materials from other species, violating the divine principle that each kind reproduces after its own kind. What have they done? They removed the seeds from fruits, creating seedless varieties that cannot reproduce naturally, breaking the cycle of life that Jehovah already has established. They inject synthetic chemicals into crops, contaminating pure foods that Jehovah provided for nourishment. All this stuff that man has done. I want you to think about what's going on here. So when you see in medicines, the matrix has replaced Jehovah's natural remedies with synthetic pharmaceuticals that treat symptoms while ignoring spiritual root causes. I want to show you something. I know I'm probably sitting there talking like a dang, I don't know, talking like something, but I'm just telling you exactly what's going on. So I have to use some Hebraic terminologies and different stuff to make sure I'm just saying what need to be said. And let's look at something. In Sirach chapter 38, verse 4, watch what he says here. And it says, the Lord have created medicines out of the earth. The Lord created medicines out of the earth. And he that is wise will not arbor them. I want you to think about that. If you're wise about it, you won't arbor them. The problem is Jehovah provided healing herbs through plants and natural substances, but man has created artificial chemicals that cause more harm than healing, creating this dependency rather than restoration. Everybody follow me? We in a matrix. I want you to understand the development of this matrix, which you're in. You're up. So you should understand this. So this matrix has convinced man. He convinced you and I to modify the entire ecosystem to go through geoengineering, weather manipulation, artificial climate control. They created synthetic materials that never decompose. Think about this, polluting the earth with substances and foreign to all Jehovah's design. They done this. So they even developed this artificial intelligence that mimics the human consciousness, attempting to create thinking beings without the breath of life that only Jehovah can impart in. I want you to think about that, because that's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to really create human intelligence. But life was never breathed in there through Jehovah. So through synthetic biology, scientists now create entire artificial organisms, bacteria, viruses, secular structures never existed in nature. See, they manipulate the fundamental building blocks of life. They do these things, assuming the role of the creator rather than being stewards. Remember what I said? We were supposed to be stewards. Even see this in the book of Baruch. Actually, I think that's why I was studying when I was last. Yeah, it's right there, Baruch 3:32. It says, but he that knoweth all things knoweth her, and hath found her out with his understanding. He that prepared the earth for evermore hath filled it with four-footed beasts. Interesting, isn't it? So only through Jehovah, his wisdom, the authority to determine what creatures shall inhabit the earth. But look what's going on. So we have to look at these spiritual consequences, because we're doing these unauthorized modifications. Everybody follow me? Everybody with me right now? We're doing these unauthorized modifications. Let's look at something. I want you to stay with me. Man has already exceeded the boundaries of proper dominion. They have transformed their circumstances from the realm of faith, Faithith, into the realm of faith. Here's this unauthorized modification. They turn faith into the realm of fate. Every genetic modification, every synthetic creation, every artificial alteration of Jehovah's design created a new circumstances that operate outside the established order. That's why I'm standing on that. That's why we can't get around it. These modified systems cannot be governed by spiritual laws because they exist in rebellion against the divine design. Y'all follow me? So what's going on here is this. Yeah, let's slow down some. Let me slow down so just to make sure we clearly understand what's going on. So when we're looking at man himself, see, we have exceeded the boundaries of proper dominion that has transformed the circumstances of the realm of faith. Faith. In the created fate. This generic modification. So with that, it comes synthetic creations. It comes with artificial alterations of Jehovah's design. Anything that he created, they alter it. They do an alteration of it. The design create new circumstances also that operated his established order. These modifications cannot be governed by spiritual laws. I want you to think about that. They cannot be governed by spiritual laws because they exist in rebellion against the divine design. This is why modern medicines fail where faith heal succeeds. I'm going to say that again. This is why modern medicines will always fail where faith healing will always succeed. Synthetic drugs operate based on chemical laws rather than spiritual laws. It's treating symptoms rather than addressing spiritual roots of the disease. So this is why GMO food lacks the spiritual nourishment of natural foods. It's contained in the genetic information that never blessed. Let's look at this. I want to show you something. We're going to see this in Genesis. Genesis 1:11. Actually, we need 1:11, actually in 1:12. It says, and God said, remember what God said, let the earth bring forth grass and herb yielding seed and fruit, the works of elders yielding works of its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herbs yielding seed after its kind, and the trees yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Exactly the point. Exactly the point. So we know that is, then by Jehovah's creative word, this is why artificial intelligence cannot truly think. It lacks the breath of life that gives consciousness. I know I probably sound like a lawyer to you guys, but I'm trying to get you guys just to understand it based on what I'm doing. So please bear with me. And that's why I'm trying to make sure I'm not using no crazy words based on what's going on. That's why I'm doing this. But many people believe that modifications as normal and necessary, they surrender their spiritual authority to become passive observers in their own lives. So they waiting for external forces, doctors, scientists, governments, technologies to determine their destiny. Everybody with me? So this passively is precisely what the matrix requires to maintain control. I want you to think about this. It's a lot of stuff we got to think about today. Souls who believe they are powerless to change their circumstances through faith, faith, will never challenge the system that oppresses them through artificial modifications of Jehovah's creation. Never happened. Never happened. Why? Because I'm going to show you why. I want to show you why. Then get a better understanding why, what's going on. And we're going to see some of these things. We're going to sit there. I want to pull up two things. We're going to look at Amos. We're going to look at Amos 3:2. But I want to pull another one there. I want to put also Exodus 6:7. I want to put two there. I want to put two here. And I want you to understand exactly what I'm getting into, what I'm talking about. Because when we got a heathen nation that operate by fate, F-A-T-E, because they don't know Jehovah as God states himself. And you see this. I want you to look at something. I want you to pay real close attention to Amos chapter 3 and verse 2. Amos chapter 3 and verse 2. It says, you only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. I want you to clearly understand what that's saying. I want you to clearly get what that's saying. And see, this here, I know I'm not strange here now, because I have many deacons and elders speak identical to me. So I don't talk this strange. I'm not this strange guy. But he's telling you he's very upfront. And this is one thing I do know. You can go anywhere else, you can go to any other place, Christian place or anything. And I promise you one thing, I know don't nobody talk like the people, these leaders that are here. That I know. Why? Because I know what I know. And you can go anywhere and they know it. And this is why there's no other people to distinguish between his works, even in human counterfeits. Because the same thing as he's saying, I have, only you have I known of all the families of the earth. And he said in Exodus 6:7, he said, and I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you a God. You see how clear this is. So Jehovah people are called to operate by faith. By faith, because we know that he has given us dominion over all his works of his hand, the works that he created, not artificial substitute that man has devised in rebellion against his order. That's the catch. So we have to return to the proper dominion. We as a people, we have to return to this. So true spiritual authority operates within Jehovah's established order, not in opposition to it. Because it's almost like I'm doing an opening statement at a court, but I promise you I'm not. But I'm just trying to get you to really understand what I'm doing. So when we exercise dominion as Jehovah intended, caring for his creation rather than corrupting it, stewarding his gifts rather than replacing them with artificial substitute, we operate by faith, F-A-I-T-H, rather than fate. So we trusting in his designs rather than human improvement. We seeking healing through natural remedies rather than synthetic chemicals. We accept the food he provided rather than genetically modified substitutes. Everybody follow me? I want to make sure you guys are following me. So this is the issue. Even actually, even in Wisdom of Solomon, I want to show you something. Even here, Wisdom of Solomon, we get ready to go roll now. We get ready to roll now. Wisdom of Solomon, 11:24, and it's watch what he says here. I want you to pay real close attention to what he's saying here. And he says this: "But thou lovest all the things that are, and abhorrest nothing which thou hast made. For never would thou have made anything if thou had hated it." You see how deep that is. You see how deep that is. Jehovah's creation is perfect in its design, its purpose. So with that, we attempt to improve upon his work. We demonstrate lack of faith in his wisdom and goodness. So this choice between faith and fate is ultimately the choice between trusting Jehovah's design or trusting man's modification of that design. Those who walk by faith recognize that every good and perfect gift comes from above. That's Jehovah. Ways are higher than our ways. His creation provides everything necessary for life and goodness when stewarded, and we steward it according to his principles. You follow me? But when we return to the proper dominion, caring for rather than corrupting, stewarding rather than replacing, trusting rather than modifying, then we discover that the circumstances respond to spiritual authority because they operate within the realm of faith rather than artificial realm of fate. I think I'm now pronouncing the right fate. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Because faith and fate is almost the same. But that's humanity that's created through unauthorized authorization of design. So the same thing I want you to keep in mind this too. I want you to keep something else in mind. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15. I want you to keep this in mind too. It says, in the Spirit of God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. He didn't say, you don't see him saying modify it, do you? He's not saying modify it, but he put him there to do this. So we got to understand this. So he's given us dominion over the works of his hand, not authority to remake them according to your or my understanding. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? I want to make sure everybody with me. We openly talking. We openly talking. We are here to sit there to steward over them, not to change them according to what we want. So corrupt what Jehovah have made, then you should find yourselves servants of your own artificial creation, bound by fate rather than freed faith. Everybody with me? Let's dig a little. Let's go a little bit deeper. Okay, so we want to see evidence. We understand that evidence is things not seen. So even Paul identifies this second aspect of faith. Faith reveal true spiritual warriors operate by invisible realities rather than visible circumstances. See, faith-bound souls make decisions based on what they can see. Everybody follow me? Faith-bound souls make decisions based on what they can see, what they can touch, what they can measure. Everybody with me? Faith operated with saints make decisions based on Jehovah's promises that transcends, it goes further than physical limitations. Everybody with me? You see what's happening here. Faith, when you faith-bound, F-A-T-E, when you faith-bound, you only operate on what you can see, what you can touch, what you can measure. But faith, F-A-I-T-H, operating on decisions based on Jehovah's promises, that it transcends limitations. This evidence is not physiological speculation, but it's concrete spiritual proof that Jehovah's word is more reliable than natural law. Tell you something of the trip. I'm not going to run to the scripture right now because I want to get to this point because I end up going off on something else. But remember when Joshua commanded the sun to stay still? You guys remember that? Joshua commanded the sun to stay still so they can put in work. You remember that? You remember when Elijah called fire down from heaven? Remember that? You remember when Moses parted the Red Sea? Do you remember these things? These were not violations of natural law, but demonstrations of spiritual law superseding natural law to those who have passed over according to the flesh and living according to the spirit. So now when we're looking at the matrix, it operates by convincing souls that natural law is the ultimate reality, but faith reveals the spiritual law that governs natural law. Y'all get it? I'm done. It's a trip. We got to remember, spiritual law governs natural law. Those who understand the principle can literally reshape reality through the power of spoken faith aligned with Jehovah's will. For they have learned to live not by sight, but by the Spirit of the living God. Scary, ain't it? It's scary, ain't it? It's a trip. It's a trip. See, we got to understand spiritual authority over physical infirmities. Spiritual authority over physical infirmity. See, the same spiritual authority that governs natural laws extends to the realm of physical healing. I want you to think about that. For Jehovah, true servants understand that sickness and disease is not ultimate realities, but temporary manifestations subject to spiritual dominion. When Jehovah breathed into Adam the breath of life, he established a pattern that the spirit governs flesh. You can say what you want. When he did that, he established a pattern that spirit governs flesh, not flesh governs spirit. I know. That was a mic drop. I know. We good. See, those who passed over from living according to the flesh and living according to the spirit recognize that physical ailments are many times spiritual issues manifesting in natural realm. But the result of broken spiritual laws, these generational curses, these demonic oppressions, they can be addressed by those who are in spiritual authority. Get that. Swallow those cookies for a minute. And to show you more so what's going on is you have ones in spiritual authority. See, they can pray according to the spirit, and you can see they can surpass physical ailments. It's going to always be based on faith rather than fate. We can care less what a doctor say. Care less what a doctor say. Doctor has nothing to do with the Most High God's property. Nothing. So how do that work? According to your faith, and you have one with the spiritual authority, can pray and take care of those things. So the matrix medical system operates by faith. See, the matrix medical system operates by faith, meaning you can have ailments going on and they can never be healed based on faith. Teaching souls that they are victims of generic predispositions, environment factors, rather than circular functions beyond their control. Simple analogies. But when you're dealing with Jehovah's servants, when you have true Jehovah's servants, no matter who they are, servants operate by faith, understanding by his stripes you're healed. Not by merely future promises, but present realities accessible through spiritual laws. So even when Elijah healed Naaman's leprosy, when the woman had the issue with blood and touched the hem of his garment, when the centurion servant was healed, his servant actually ended up getting healed by spoken words, even at a distance. Demonstrated spiritual authority transcends physical limitations and medical impossibilities. You follow me? See, some faith that moves through mountains. See, the same faith can move a mountain. It can command disease cells to align with the divine order. It can break generational curses. It can manifest what they call it, it's hereditary inbred, these conditions that cast out infirmities that have their root in spiritual bondage rather than physical modification or what they call it, physical malfunctions. That's what I'm looking for. These physical malfunctions. So when we're looking at these practical applications, so when we embark on the journey of understanding the spiritual warfare within the matrix, know that your very approach to this teaching here will be determined whether you operate by faith, F-A-I-T-H, or fate. Whether you live according to the flesh or you living according to the spirit. If you approach as one bound by fate, still living according to the flesh, you will see these truths as interesting, even philosophies, but remain trapped within this matrix of limitations, no matter what. You follow me? But if you approach as one walked by faith, have passed over from the flesh and living according to the spirit, you'll discover that the art of fighting without fighting, it's not merely a spiritual concept, but it's a practical reality that transforms every aspect of your existence. So we want to understand something. Faith, Faith, it makes you dangerous, makes you a dangerous person in the matrix because it reveals that you are not subject to its rules. You're not subject to its rules. You operate on a higher law that the matrix cannot comprehend or counter. You truly understand that faith is the substance, it's the evidence. You'll realize that the matrix powers you. It's nothing more than an illusion, maintaining an agreement to operate by its deceptions rather than Jehovah's truth. You follow me? See, when you want to get serious with this and understand really what I'm talking about, you'll get into what I'm saying. See, this choice of faith over faith, or this choice of faith in fate, the choice between living according to the flesh and living according to the spirit, between spiritual authority and spiritual slavery. So between being a warrior in Jehovah's army or being a casualty in the enemy's deception. It's one of the two. Y'all follow me? You got to see how serious this is getting. See, when we're looking at this foundation of authority, we have to establish upon the tablets of stone. I want you to think about this. I want you to really hear me on this. If you're following after righteousness and you seek the Most High with heart panting as the heart after the water brook, I want you to remember something. Never forget this. But I know some of y'all gonna forget, but never forget. But I know some of y'all gonna forget. I know you ain't gonna forget it, but you're gonna forget it. I stand before you this day. Elder Johnson, I stand before you this day as one who has witnessed even the opening of the sealed chambers in visions, where the ancient path were made manifest unto those who hungered not for bread that perishes, but for the living word that proceedeth from the mouth of Jehovah. So you can think of me or whoever you want to think of. Ask me, do I care? See, the veil of man's traditions has been rent asunder, hidden mysteries that revealed unto those whose ears are circumcised to hear. So, for I have been shown even these visions of the night in secret places where principalities and powers devise these tactics against children of the Most High. I have heard the voice of God through men, with understanding declaring unto his servants the art of fighting without fighting. Show you something. I want to show you something. I want to make sure we're clearly on this. Ephesians. We want to look at Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to pick it up at verse 12. I want to show you something. You can get it. It says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers in darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This is interesting. The reason why I want you to mark this well. Mark it well. Even as I have learned through much tribulation in the word wrestle. Mark it. Word, wrestle. See, don't speak of carnal. You see right there, you're not wrestling with flesh and blood. Carnal. You're not wrestling with that. Get that off your mind. Because between mortal bodies, but the great contention that rages of the unseen realm between forces of light and principalities of darkness. See, in my journey from darkness to light, I discovered that every battle, every thought was against flesh and blood. was in the true spiritual contest for my very soul. I want you to clearly understand where I'm coming from. I saw how the scales even fell from my eyes when I understood that wrestle, understanding in the strong Hebrew tongue signified that this violent collision of bodies between the earth, but this profound struggle that taketh place where the chambers of spirit, where the messengers, the angels, contend with demons in the possessions of man's soul. So for years, I had to learn this. Years, I have mistaken the battlefield, thinking that my own enemies were flesh and blood that stood before me. That's why I was always getting caught up. But the wayward wife, the rebellious child, the difficult neighbor, the false teacher, the corrupted leader, yet through the dark glass of tribulations, when Jehovah stripped away the veil from my own understanding, I saw the tribulation truth. I saw the terrible truth. These visible adversaries were nothing but more but puppets. Okay, I'm going to take out another one. 1 second. I got people coming in here that should not be in here. So I'm getting ready to remove. They won't be able to get back in. But I don't know why they keep doing this. So you come back here, I will remove you. So don't come back here. You come back here, I'm going to remove you. And once I remove you, you won't be able to get back in later. So that's what just happened. Because people coming back here, evidently not understanding plain, simple English. So you come back here in the Zoom, I'm going to remove you. You won't be able to get back in. So the same thing is this. These people become these puppets on invisible strings, these marionettes. Marionettes are nothing but string puppets. That's all they are, string puppets. And they move by these spiritual forces that dwell in high places. See, the husband who raged against his wife in ungodly fury, he is not the enemy, but the principality of divorce that speaks through his tongue, worketh through his hands. So the child who rebelled against righteous instructions, she is not the foe, but the power of lawlessness have taken residence in her heart and poisoned her afflictions. My own experience bears witness to the hidden affairs that most believers cannot perceive. I remember even the season when my own flesh rose up against a brother, spoken against the ministry of Jehovah. And I thought to defend the name of Jehovah through the weapons of this world, through sharp words, through righteous indignation, through gathering of all other believers to my cause, including how the enemy did laugh and took up carnal weapons to fight spiritual battles, not knowing that that every thrust of the sword of the flesh will only strengthen the very principality that sought to defeat. It's crazy. It's crazy. So those days I did not know the mystery that Paul revealed. I didn't know this. It's right there in Ephesians. I didn't know this. But through meditation, which some people say they do and they don't do, but through meditation, our wrestling is not against flesh and blood. It's against spiritual wickedness in high places. We can't get around it. So the brother who opposed me was not the true enemy, but he was a prisoner of war. This spirit that's in him that's making him be like this marionette. And he's moving him by the spirit of this division to salt, to scatter the flock of Jehovah. So when I fought against his person, rather than interceding his deliverance, I became an unwitting agent for the very principality that I thought I was resisting. This was the matrix working at its best. I was actually working for him. The matrix is not something you play with. So when this great revelations came upon me on the night, I beheld this unseen realm open my eyes and to where it opened my eyes as I even asked for Elijah what he did when he prayed. Actually, I want to show you that. I want to show you that one. Let me use this one here because it's over here in 2 Kings. I'm going to show it to you. I want you to see this. 2 Kings, we're going to look at this 6:17. I want you to see something. And this is what happened. And Elijah prayed and said, Lord, Spirit of God, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord, the Spirit of God, opened his eyes of the young man, and he saw. And remember, behold, the mountain was full of horses. Keep that in mind, full of horses, doctrines, and chariots of fire round about Elijah. This is very serious because I saw the principalities arrayed like mighty generals commanding vast armies, lesser spirits, each assigned to corrupt specific aspects of man's experience, like marriage, family, governments, commerce, religion. I saw the powers that enforced the will of these principalities moving like lightning between heavenly places in the earth, carrying out strategies of darkness with military precision. You want to get in my head? I'm telling you about it. You're going to see what I see? I'm telling you about it. See, I even saw this vision. It revealed unto me the similitude of horses, these horses' chariots, that accomplish the servant of Jehovah. Yet, in the reverse order, the horses and the chariots of these enemies arrayed against the souls of men. So for the prophet Elijah, he saw the mountain full of horses, chariots, fire round and about him for his protection. So did I see the spirit of horses and the chariots. They served as principalities of darkness in their warfare against the children of the light. So these horses were which the spiritual significance, which also represents the doctrines that men carried forth from truth, with swift courses bearing riders of deception into the hearts of the unsuspecting. This is not some weird teaching, but it's a living spiritual force that gallops through the minds of men, carrying false beliefs that seems as truth, and sunrise that leads souls into the wilderness of error. See, I even seen these horses that bear on the back of different doctrines of the devil, or carrying these men's work, earn divine favor, others bearing lies that Jehovah's grace excuse continue, rebellion, yet galloping forth with deception that men's wisdom can comprehend divine ministry. I want you to think about that. Actually, I want to show you something. Thinking about it, I want to show you something. We're going to see this in Isaiah 31, 1. Woe to them that go down to Egypt, to the house of bondage for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, in the horsemen, because they are very strong, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Exactly the point. Exactly the point. So I saw how these spiritual horses carry men away from dependence of Jehovah unto dependence of systems of men's devising, making them to trust the strength of doctorial knowledge rather than the living relationship of the Most High. This was one of the big issues I had. But most people want to sit there and know what I'm about. I'm telling you what I see. These chariots would signify these vehicles of power, the desires of these earthly glories rolling across these spiritual landscapes like thunder. Each one designed to transport these souls, us, from the narrow path until the broad that leadeth us to destruction. These chariots were they was really, really beautiful, magnificent to behold. They was adorned with gold and precious stone and drawn with swift horses, driven by beings that appeared as angels. Good people. But it tells you more. This is why we got to understand what we're dealing with. In 2 Corinthians, it actually tells us, in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, picking up at verse 14, he tells us this, but we have to learn this. It says in no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. You have many people who come to you with talking all this stuff. Oh, yeah, he's good. He's a good man. He's a good. He's a liar if he's in the building. He's a liar if he's a preacher in the building. He's a Christian. He's a liar to you. But many of us are deceived here. That's why we have a mixed multitude. See, each chariot bore different banners of worldly ambition, one displaying the crown of religious authority and desire to be seen of men in spiritual matters. Others showing the scepters of intellectual pride and the lust to be counted them wise, learn still among bearing the same standards of moral superiority. And their hunger to be judges, while others is excusing oneself. Think about it. Think about it. Actually, let me go a little bit deeper over here real quick. We're going to look at 10:12. 2 Corinthians 10:12. It says, for we dare not to make ourselves one of the one number, or compare ourselves with someone that commend themselves, but they measure themselves by themselves. They measure themselves by themselves, and they comparing themselves amongst themselves. These chariots of pride carry their passengers in circles, self-deception, making them think they are ascending to these great heights, while in truth, we're sinking deeper into spiritual bondage. Most people didn't even know that verse was sitting there. I already know they didn't. Most people never even knew that verse sat there. But this is the problem that we have. The same vision even revealed to me the deeper mystery, how these horses, these chariots operate side by side to ensnare just the souls of each and every one of us. These horses of false doctrine is not just to carry false information. They carry spiritual essence of rebellion against Jehovah's sovereignty, implanting within the minds of hunger for spiritual independence that grows with each feeding. Tell me it's not true. See, I beheld how the horse bearing the doctrines that works righteousness will gallop into the souls that plant the seeds, the spiritual pride, making the person believe that their religious performance have earned them special standings before Jehovah. So once the seed took root, the chariot of religious authority, when arrived, carried that soul into position where they can display their supposed righteousness before others, seeking honor from men rather than from God alone. I'm telling you, it's a crack up. See, this matrix ain't no joke. This process was the systematic as a military campaign to get you. First, the horse of false doctrine would prepare the ground by corrupting first the understanding. Then the chariot of worldly ambition would harvest the corrupted soul for servicing in the kingdom of darkness. What appeared to onlookers as spiritual advancement was in reality spiritual captivity. So each doctrine carried its own chain, its own chariot, its own prison. Tell me this ain't no joke. And this is true. This happening in real time right now. See, the most tragic sight I even saw, the souls how they had once carried and they once walked humbly with Jehovah, riding proudly in chariots of their own achievements, not knowing that they had become prisoners of war in their own supposed victory. I'm telling you, it's crazy. Let's look at something. In Jeremiah 17:9, it tells us this. It says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Who can know it? See, so did they witness how easily most sincere followers of Christ's heart can be deceived through trading the narrow way for daily dependence upon the broad highway of spiritual self-sufficiency. This is what we do. This is what we're about. This is what we get into. Our deepest vision. See, I saw the terrible intelligence that guided this spiritual cavalry. Each horse knew precisely which soul to target, which doctrine would prove most seductive, that particular heart. No, don't use that one. No, don't use that one for that one. That one ain't gonna work on that one. Use this one. Don't do this one for that one. Use that one. No, don't use this one, this one. Those horses bearing the doctrine of intellectual pride sought out to those who delight in knowledge. They got those. Some in study, offering them this intoxicating wine of this theological superiority. See, these horses carry the teaching of emotional experience, galloping towards this thirst of spiritual feelings, promising them the heights of religious ecstasy in exchange for the sober dependence upon the word of Jehovah. See, the most cunning of all, see, there's one that's real cunning of all the horses. He bore the doctrine of partial truth. He got 2 billion plus of partial truth, taking genuine scripture principles and twisting them just enough to make them serve the kingdom of self rather than the kingdom of God. Just that simple. Just that simple. He'll get you. See, these chariots, they follow these horses, were equally cunning in their design, in their purpose. But then when you see the chariots in the ministry and this ambition, this golden wheel spinning in the names of these famous preachers, where they had these ministries called such and such ministries, such and such ministry, such and such ministry, those are chariots that's taking people off. This is such and such ministry. This is such and such ministry. It's just bearing their name. The success in these successful churches drawing souls away from the faithful service and obscuring towards this glittering stage of public recognition, their role, the chariot of theological mastery. It banners, it embolizes with degrees and titles of achievements that carry the souls away from childlike faith to prideful heights, academic respectability. See, the most seductive ones was the chariots of spiritual authority, promising each passenger the power to interpret scripture, other than to look upon the oracles of divine wisdom. Each chariot, no matter how glorious its appearance, it was ultimate heresy, carrying the passengers away from life towards death that comes from spiritual pride and self-exaltation. And it tells you this. Actually, I'm going to show it to you. I want you to see it. In Proverbs chapter 16, this tells you about it, because I'm 16:18. I'm sorry, 16:18. I know that's it. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. It's automatic. It's automatic. So I understand that every soul that climbeth abroad these chariots of this worldly glory was choosing destruction while thinking that they were choosing advancement. But I saw the most terrible sight was this. I had to speak about it. I saw those who spiritual forces was who operate not primarily through obvious evil, but through corruption of good things. Corruption of good things. Through belief of divorce from relationships. Through knowledge puffed up without love, through zeal without understanding, through truth spoken in spirit of pride rather than the spirit of humility. The principality of religious deception worketh the most effective not through this atheists and heathens, but through sincere believers who have been deceived into fighting spiritual battle with carnal weapons. You follow me? See, this vision that I seen this. I understood why the scripture saith that our wrestling is for the very soul itself. The soul standeth in the intersection between the seen and the unseen, between time and eternity, between flesh and spirit. The principalities of power, we have to look at this, seek to capture the soul through deception, making it believe that its battles are against visible enemies rather than invisible ones. Matrix at its best. It's a security that lies in carnal weapons rather than spiritual ones. Its identity is rooted in earthly achievement rather than heavenly callings. See, the contest, it rages from fiercely in this realm of the mind. It's where it's seeking to get you. To form decisions are made. See, if the enemy can control man's thoughts, if he can control your thoughts, he can control his actions without the man ever realizing he ever been enslaved. Have you ever thought about that? If an enemy can control your thoughts, then he can control your actions without you ever realizing you have been enslaved to him. We got to go deep now. We got to keep going deeper and deeper in 2 Corinthians. We're going to look at chapter 10, picking up at verse 5. And it says, casting down imagination in every high place that exalt itself against the knowledge of God, and bring it into captivity. Every thought is in your head. Because if he can control that, he got you to obedience of Christ. I want you to think about that. See, we had a lot to think about today. See, when we're looking at the mind of soul in the battlefield for many years, this is where we have been. And though we know from the beginning the enemy have planted thoughts that seem to be our own, fears that appear to be legitimate concerns. This is what he do. He gonna plant these things in you. Desire to masquerade as righteous ambitions, principalities assigned to our life to work patiently year after year to build strongholds of self-reliance in the mind, convincing even me that my spiritual warfare depended on my own self-efforts rather than upon the grace of Jehovah. So we have to look at that every lesson I preach, every lesson I preached in the past, in the energy of flesh, every prayer I offered, heard of men, every act of service performed, was not my own will, but built on reputation, but in the parable of victories, the kingdom of Jehovah. So though I appeared as the words of confusion. So if you could not hear my spirit speaking in spirit, or discern the prayer of my prayer that offered up to Jehovah, this showed that you did not understand me ever. Actually, I'm going to show it to you. I want to show it to you. In Matthew, we look at this in Matthew 13:17. I want to show you this. It says, for verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see. What I see. and have not seen them, to hear those things which ye heard, and heard them and not heard them. See, the kingdom of darkness has shown many of you who's here. And you chose to go your own way. You chose to believe what you want to believe. This kingdom of darkness has showed you these ways of confusion, presenting my spirit communication as unknown parables unto your carnal understanding. For the natural man receiveth not the things of the spirit of Jehovah, they are foolishness unto him. And he can't know them because they are spiritually discerned. What appeared as confusion to the fleshly ears were true mysteries of the kingdom spoken in the language of the spirit. Because the spirit ears these spiritual ears remain uncircumcised. You perceive only the surface words, while the deeper revelations remain sealed to your understanding. See, the greatest awakening came when it was finally I understood that the battles was not just for my soul, but it was for the soul of all who hear my voice, that follow my example. That's what I learned. That's why I don't change for nobody. I'm going to follow God no matter what. Principalities that seek not merely to destroy individual believers, even myself, but to corrupt the very foundation of spiritual instruction. So to turn pastors is what they seek, to turn pastors into hardened, to transform houses of prayer into dens of thieves, to make the gospel of grace into the message that works righteous, where the spiritual leader falls into the deceptions of fighting with carnal weapons. He becomes this conduit through which darkness flows in the lives of many. So you got to remember how this goes. You got to remember what this is about. This is why the wrestling is intense. So no personal, no relentless, because the stakes are not just the individual or generational, but it's not even about anything else, but it's temporal, but it's eternal. The soul that learns to fight the spiritual battles with spiritual weapons becomes the fountain of life, who draws near. But the soul that remains deceived becomes the broken cistern, who cannot hold water. Spreading spiritual thought never gives wherever it goes. So through the years of defeat and victory, falling and rising, confusion and clarity, I have learned the art of fighting without fighting. I've learned that. Begins with the fundamental recognition that every person I encounter is either a fellow prisoner of war in need of liberation or a fellow warrior who needs encouragement. But never, never, ever an enemy to be destroyed, but the one who shows himself of the wicked one. And they always are here. But the ones who initializes and will not turn from their own wicked ways, because the knowledge transformed that every encounter, every conversation, every conflict from the battle to be won is an opportunity to demonstrate the superior power of the divine love of our spiritual darkness. And I'm going to show you why. And I'm going to show you why a lot of us use this, and I don't know why, but I'm going to show you why it's being used a lot. We see this also in Isaiah chapter 28. We're going to sit there and see something. 28, look at verse 10. Actually, we use it. Precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. We got to understand that. We got to get that. Because we got to understand when we're looking at how we wrestle against hidden contentions for the soul, we got to understand that. Jacob was left alone. Actually, let's look at this. I'm gonna show you something which you're gonna probably look at. You're gonna see kind of weird. We're gonna look at this in Jacob chapter 32, 24. We're gonna run this down until we get to it, and we're gonna see the same thing, the same identical thing to understand what's happening. Actually, we're gonna tell you what. I want to put another one with it. We're gonna put Hebrews with this to what we can't get out of it. Hebrew 10. In we want 10, 7 through 9. Yeah. Okay, it says right here, it says, Jacob was left alone. In there, wrestled a man with him until breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched in hollow of his thigh, and hollowed Jacob's thigh without a joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. He said, thy name, your name ain't called no more Jacob. We're done with that. But Israel. For a prince thou hast power with God and with men, and has prevailed. Now I'm going to show you something, what's going on with this. Because we got to understand, you got to see this and understand it. This similitude that revealed even to me, as this night watches on Jacob's name signify this surplanter. I want you to understand, a surplanter, the one who took the heel of even his brother, the one sees this replacement. As it says here, even here in 10:7 through 10:9, it said, Lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written to me to do thy will, O God. And where it says, sacrifice or offering, I will not. For burnt offering of sin, thou wouldst not neither have pleasure therein, which he offered by the law. Then said he, Lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first, his body, established the second. This is what's going on. This is what goes down. See, rather than through might wrestle through mere flesh, but with the messenger of Jehovah who appeared in the form of a man to teach him the mystery of the spiritual persistence. We got to understand that. This was no common messenger, but this was one bearing the very nature, the very authority of Jehovah himself, as evidenced by his power to change his name and to bestow this divine blessing upon him. So this same dark hour by the brook of Jacob, on where he was at, when Jacob's natural strength had broken and his thigh was put out of joint. You see it right there. It was put out of joint. Through the spiritual transformation began to make known to me through Jehovah. So this first bring the lower of the flesh before he can exalt the spirit. So Jacob wrestle became the parable. You got to understand this. It became the parable that every believer must learn to cease from their own works and trust wholly in Jehovah's provisions rather than the arm of flesh. So when this angel touched and hollowed the thigh of Jacob, you see it right there in 25, and he saw he prevailed not against him, and he hollowed his thigh, touched it, boom, took it out of whack. But he still wanted him to he wasn't letting it go. He wasn't letting it go. But you can see this angel, this messenger, see that this reliance is the very surplaning nature of Jacob's character. So this divine wrestling until the daybreak. You're going to see what's going on here. And this represents this spiritual battle that we have to endure in the darkness and the trials until the dawn of revelation appears. So even in Jacob's desperate cry, I will not let thee go unless thou bless me, revealed this transformation from one who sought the blessing through this deception of one who sought through the spiritual this spiritual persistence, this covenant relationship with Jehovah. That name should be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For thou art a prince with God and with men. You see what he's telling you right there? With God and with men. Let's look at something. I want to show you something. We're going to go back to what I'm talking about. We're going to see this over in 2 Corinthians. I want to show you something. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, looking at verse 9. Pick this up, and it says this. And when he hallowed it, he said, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness, and most gladly, therefore, I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. So we got to understand that. So when he became this person, this was not a common messenger whom even was written, actually, even in Malachi, you could actually even see it here. I'm going to show it there. In Malachi chapter 3, picking up at verse 1, it tells you this. It says, remember, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before thee. And the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant whom ye delight in. Remember, he shall say, he shall come, saith the Spirit of God of hosts. So this angel of this covenant, this messenger, this present appeared unto Jacob in the form to teach him this profound mystery on what he need to do, on what he's all about. He's going to show him what's happening. We see this all through Scripture. All through Scripture, you see this. But my son, if I come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for your soul for temptation. Sit thy heart and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. That's Ecclesiasticus 2:1-2. So we got to understand what happened here. See, when he wrestled at Peniel, was Jacob's preparation in serving Jehovah in his initiation into this sacred order would bear the name of Israel. You got to keep this in mind. Understand what's going down. So in the spiritual understanding, receive that through the years of wrestling in this sacred place, I even have seen this encounter was a training ground for all who would later come and be called Israel. Those who struggle with Jehovah is what it means, Israel, who even struggle with Jehovah. Actually, I want to tell you what, let me put that up there. Let me show you something. Israel. Let's see. Let me just show you this. I want to show you this, just so you see it. And Israel, Jehovah's servant, he who struggles with Jehovah, who strives with God, but is not against God, but we're going to see this. We're going to see that. We're going to understand this now. So this is how we get this. This is how we understand what's going on. So it signified he who strives with God. Not in rebellion, he struggles with Jehovah, not in rebellion, but he is holy, he's persistent. This word Israel signifies he who strives with God, not as an enemy, but seeking to overthrow his divine authority, but one who will not be satisfied with anything else, nothing less, but fulfilling the divine blessing. You follow me? This is how this goes. That's how this works. This is why a lot of people don't get this. So actually, even looking at Colossians, looking at 1:24, it tells us something. Colossians 1:24, it gets delivered. It says, now rejoice in my sufferings for you, and fill up that which is behind the affliction of Christ, of Jehovah, in my flesh, for his body's sake, which is the church. So we understand this deeper understanding, this deeper revealed even in the book of Baruch, as we keep going through some of these, and we just getting a better understanding of what's going on. In Baruch chapter 3, verse 24, and we'll see this here, 24, it says, O Israel, how great is the house of God, and how large is the place of his possession. Great hath none end, height immeasurable, immeasurable. So we got to understand this. So we wrestling not with merely with Jacob personal transformation, but established as the father of his people to inherit this immeasurable house. Every blow struck, every hold maintained, every moment of refusal to surrender was preparing him for the father of nations who wrestled with Jehovah through all generations. This wrestling was not in contention or violence, but it was the carnal mind interpret that this sacred, holy, this separated persistent was the divine embrace, not to release until wisdom was imparted, blessing is secured. Actually, even says, actually, let me go. Let me keep running this as it keep running to me. I'm gonna run into more of them. Even in Hosea, we're looking at Hosea chapter 12, picking up at verse 4. Tells you. It says, he had power over the angel, over the messengers in prevail, and he wept and made supplications unto him and found him in Bethel. And there he spake with us. Yeah, he did. And it's showing you that Jacob power was not his physical strength, but it was the tears of supplication, his refusal to let go into divine purpose was fulfilled. Are you following me? See, we consider all these things, and when we want to get deeper and deeper into this parable, this understanding, to where many can just handle this much. That's why I'm running to where we can make sure we just get a lot of this. In the 2nd Esdras, chapter 6, verse 38, it tells us this. In verse 38, it says this. It says, O Lord, that speaketh from the beginning of the creation, even the first day, and said thus, let heaven and earth be made, and thy word was made, was a perfect work. Just as Jehovah spoke creation into the existence through his word alone, so must his servants learn to depend upon the word alone when earthly support are removed from each and every one of us. We got to get this. This is placed, and we got to look at this isolation that we go through. Jehovah's servants, this present appearance. Jehovah meets us not in a crowd of religious activity, but in the desert places where only his voice can be heard. Wrestling continued until daybreak, until the breaking of day, signifying this spiritual struggle must continue through the entire night season of the soul. When darkness seemed to prevail, the divine purpose remains hidden. But when morning comes, when understanding draws and darkness of confusion is dispelled, then so blessings made known. The new name is being revealed. Touching the hallowed Jacob's thigh. It reveals the limitation placed on human strength. The Hebrew function of hallowed, setting apart, the consecrated. So this angel touched that place. He dislocated this joint, breaking the source of Jacob's natural ability to maintain fleshly strength. He did this. But it gets better. Oh, it gets way better. Let's look at something in Judah. We're going to look at something in 2 places. Judah chapter 9, looking at verse 5. And we also want 2 Corinthians 12:9. I want these two. So it says, for thou hast wrought not only those things, but those things which fell out before, and in use after, thou hast thought upon the things that are now and are to come. So we got that one. But you got a little bit more there because it's going to reveal more. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee. We got to remember that. That's what he did. So Jacob's limp became his testimony, a permanent reminder that his victory came not through natural strength, but through spiritual grace. Through spiritual grace. Received a place to acknowledge his weakness. So the man who wrestled with Jacob, his power was not mere that he can handle. The authority was to dislocate Jacob's thigh, but with a touch. That's all he did. He touched it and he dislocated it, demonstrating one thing that you got to keep in mind. When he did that, he touched his thigh and he dislocated it. That demonstrated he could have ended this contest at any moment he wanted to. At any moment, he could have ended that. And he did it all night. And he could have ended it at that very moment. This reveals this profound truth that Jehovah's servants wrestle not against, they believe they are stronger enough to contend with him, but because he restrains his power to allow the wrestling that transformed the very nature of each and every one of us. That's what he was doing. To show you this deeper part of this. So actually, Wisdom of Solomon, looking at chapter 11, looking at verse 17, let's look at something. For the almighty hand that had made the world a matter without form, wanted not means to send among them the multitude that bears or fears lions. I don't know what the hell is saying. Don't worry, I'm going to explain to you. Don't worry. See, like the angel discoursing even in Idris' hidden chambers reveal, not to defeat, but to instruct them. Not to overpower, but to refine them through the sacred process of holy persistence. You follow me? Of holy persistence. Let's look at something. In 2nd Idris, chapter 10, verse 25, it says this. And it came to pass, while I was talking with her, the spirit, remember her face was upon a sudden shine exceedingly, and her countenance glittered, so that I was so afraid. Really? I was so afraid. And Muse said it might be. This. So he wrestled with this, but he wanted this to stand, and he's going to instruct this. So we got to remember, he said, you don't let go until you bless me. This demonstrated the very essence of spiritual warfare, not attempting to overcome Jehovah through strength, but the refusal to until he received the blessing. The art of fighting without fighting. The art of fighting without fighting. Actually, I want to show you something. Songs of Solomon. Let me show you something. Songs of Solomon 3:4. Something I want to show you something. But I was but little that I passed from them. But I find whom my soul loveth. And I held him, and I would not let him go. I ain't letting him go. I ain't gonna let you go. Not gonna let you go until you bless me. I'm not letting you go until you bless me. Until I have brought him into my mother's house, into the chambers of her that conceived me. I ain't letting you go. See, this is what goes down. This is what happens. When we truly seeking God, this is what goes down. This is what happens. So as we continue with this, the heart of man changes his countenance, whether it be for good or evil. A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance. So only when Jacob acknowledged what he had done, a man whose heart was set on earth to advantage that could receive the declaration, what can become Israel. He can become Israel. A prince with power before Jehovah and with men. So this transformation of names that you see people do, which is crazy, you need the transformation of names that's coming from God. The this metamorphosis, this transformation from Jacob to Israel, unveileth the mere change even of a palliation, revealing Jehovah's hidden counsel where the frailty of flesh is subdued by the power of spirit that is exalted. Let me run two for you. I'm gonna run two for you. We're gonna look at Isaiah 62, 62:2, and we also want Genesis 35:10. 35:10, I believe. Yeah. So it's telling you right here, and you see here where it was written by the prophet Isaiah. It says, "And the Gentiles shall see thy righteousness, and all kings of thy glory, and thou shalt call by the new name, Israel." That's the new name, Israel, which the mouth of the Lord shall name. And he called him Israel, because you can even see where he did it. And God said unto them, thy name is right there. Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. Straightforward, right up front. So this transformation comes from this spiritual ordinance of the law, this divine switchover, where the surplanter falleth and the prince arises. The surplanter fall, this flesh falls. This surplanter arises, where the heel holder is broken, where the God holder can be established. It's not by wrought with man, but self-reformation, but through the trivial of wrestling with Jehovah until this flesh faileth. So this new name sounds more upon the tongue. It's this cornerstone, this testimony. Hidden manna that feedeth the soul, evidence that triumph over the overcomer. Actually, I'm going to show you something. You'll see this even in Revelations. Revelations 2:17, and it says this. He that hath ear, let him hear what the Spirit said unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and I will give him the white stone, and the stone in the new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receiveth it. So just because you're here doesn't mean you got the name. See, Jacob metamorphosis bears the eternal similitude of every soul that contends with the Almighty until nature is altered, the destiny rewritten, the princely authority is sealed. For he who cometh forth from the wrestling with Jehovah, who's no longer carried the name of the former weakness, but this testimony of this new stature, declaring by his name, by his walk, his path prevails, the spirit is exalted in the kingdom of Jehovah. This is why we have to be separated. So we have to have these bodies, these chambers in preparation. It tells us this even in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26. It tells us this real cool. We got to understand what this is about. It says, ye should be holy unto me. We should be separated unto God. For I am the Lord. I am the Spirit of God. I'm holy. I'm separated. I am severed. He severed us from other people. We are severed from all people. We are separate from every people out there. And you should have known that. Because I can promise you one thing. My language is not like anybody else's language that you see over the web or anywhere. As you see even my brothers that's here. We don't talk as they talk. We don't speak as they speak. We don't teach as they teach. We are severed from all people. All people. This is 100% facts. Not something to be glorified. Oh, these, no, I'm just giving you truth. Not something trying to put us on pedestals. Truth. Something not for us to be doing with people. Something that you need to be doing. Not to be glorified of people. Something we need to be doing. Not to be glorified. No. Something we need to be doing. So in my own preparation chamber, place a secret prayer meditation upon precepts, I learned that holiness is not achieved with religious performances of what you see in mainstream media, but it's through the separation to Jehovah. Actually, I want to do better yet. I want to take you somewhere. I want to take you to Tobit. I want you to see something in Tobit. And they said, well, he's going to some weird places. He run me, I run you. Okay, it says prayer is good with fasting and alms, with good deeds and righteousness. And little with righteousness is better than much with unrighteousness. It is better to give alms, good deeds, than to lay up gold. For good deeds shall deliver him from death, and shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms, good deeds, and righteousness shall be filled with life. Exactly the point. Exactly what the point is. We have to understand these things. What's going on and how men let men tell them what should be there and what not should be there. See, wrestling in the chamber, where we learn the profound difference between fighting against Jehovah and wrestling with him. Fighting against him is rebellion, fruit of attempts to resist his will and establish his own kingdom is what they do. But wrestling with him is the holy persistence that refuses to accept anything less than the highest purpose of our own lives. Even that purpose requires the death of everything we thought we wanted. Everything. First Maccabees, it tells us in 4 and 10, it says, now therefore let us cry unto heaven, if peradventure the Lord will have mercy upon us, and remember the covenant of our fathers, and destroy this host before our face this day. What did we do? See, like Jacob, we must learn to be left alone, stripped of every human helper, every carnal support, every earthly confidence, for the wrestling chambers, isolation where Jehovah can deal with us without interference from well-meaning of friends or religious counselors that they like to go after, to seek comfort of our flesh, rather than lead of the spiritual transformation that we used to be doing. Actually, one day, let me run somewhere else. Because they keep running me. I'm going to keep running you. I'm just letting you know. In 2 Esdras chapter 4, verse 21, it tells us this. For like as the ground is given unto the wood, and the sea unto the flood, even so that dwells upon the earth may understand nothing but that which is upon the earth, and he that dwelleth above the heavens may only understand the things that are above the height of the heavens. Exactly the point. We learn that the dark night of our soul is not punishment, but it's for preparation. Not abandonment, but it's the most intimate form of divine attention. In this sacred space, we discover that Jehovah delights not in our strength, but our dependence. Not our ability to overcome, but the willingness to overcome by his love, to transform by his touch, marked forever by the limp that testifies even of our spiritual encounter that you see in the place of Peniel that happened to Jacob. So when we get into these wrestling chambers, understanding that we in this matrix, the deeper precept that you understand when Jehovah's greatest victory is in our lives that overcome their apparent defeat are the greatest strength through our acknowledgement of weakness, the greatest blessing through our willingness to be broken. Jacob limped away from Peniel is he carried his own body, the permanent testimony that he had seen Jehovah's face to face and lived. Not because he was strong enough to survive the encounter, but because Jehovah was gracious enough to limit his power to transform rather than to destroy. This is the mystery hidden from the ages of generations, but now revealed to you. This is the art of fighting without fighting, where we discover the greatest enemy is not external opposition, but eternal resistance. The divine transformation that ceases the fight against Jehovah, his purpose, that began with wrestling and the fulfillment. So we enter into this sacred order where Israel, where we get to this. And I want to show you a parable, but I had to go another way, but you still should get it because I had to go another direction, but we still should get this. Because we got to look at the matrix of divine transformation. But we have to understand faith based on faith. But still, I want you to see this parable. I'm going to show you this parable because I want you to understand it. And this parable is, I wrote it, but it's copywritten. I didn't get a chance to put that there, but it's copywritten. So if we see this anywhere else, I will have that taken down. But we're going to look at something on Genesis, based on Genesis 32:24. I'm going to show you this right here. Genesis 32:24. And Jacob was left alone and he wrestled with the man until the breaking of the day. I want you to keep that in mind as we go. But it's a little bit different as we go through here. So as we go through here, we want to pay some attention to it. It says, hearken unto this parable, O ye seek understanding beyond the veil of flesh. For it was given unto me in a vision of the night, when the matrix of earthly illusions was lifted like the morning mist. I saw the chambers where souls learn the sacred art of fighting without fighting, where the very fabric of reality bends and accommodate divine purpose, and the laws of the spirit supersedes the laws of flesh. I beheld a certain man whose name was Gabar, and this spiritually functioned as mighty man, warrior, who encountered the chamber, hewn not formed from dead stone, but from a living rock of ages. Everybody understanding what's going on thus far? So this place, it seems, unto his natural understanding, to be appointed for battle and conquest, yet this chamber exists simultaneously with multiple dimensions. That's what I'm speaking about with this matrix, but you got to understand it. So the visible is the flesh, is a place of conflict. But revealed to the spirit is the very womb of Jehovah, where souls are reborn from death to life. The walls were scarred with marks of ancient conflict. Each scar is a testimony written in the language of its transformation. And the air was thick in dust and the spiritual warfare, and had a rage in the place since the foundation of the world. When the morning stars sang together, the sons of God shouted for joy. Gabar came and girded for war, according to the matrix of the man's understanding. His loins bound about with the armor of his own righteousness. The filthy rags which the prophet Isaiah declared cannot cover the nakedness of the soul. His feet were shown with the preparation of his own understanding that wisdom of this world was foolishness with Jehovah. He bore the shield of his theological knowledge. That should be a key for you. Those doctrines of men which makes void the commandments of God. He wielded the sword of the man reasoning in carnal weapon which cannot pierce the veil between the seen and the unseen realms. But when he rised his first to strike, remember, there was no flesh to smite, no blood to spill. Everybody should start understanding kind of what's going on now. But when he had entered into the matrix of spiritual reality, where the weapons of warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God, are pulling down strongholds. The enemy was as wind, as shadow, as principalities that moved in darkness between earth and heaven. Those rulers of darkness of this world, they cannot be fought with the sword and spears, but only through the wrestling of spirit. Before he stood, a figure appeared sometimes as a man of sorrow, acquainted with grief, bearing the holy body and marked with the very soul wrestling. Sometimes as a consuming fire, yet burn, yet not destroy, purifying gold while consuming the dross. Sometimes as a gentle shepherd calling his sheep by name, each name written in the Lamb's book of life from the foundation of the world. This was the matrix of divine manifestation, where the same presence appears according to the spiritual need of the beholder, yet remains eternally unchanged, his essential nature. And Gebar cried with a voice like thunder, saying, how should I fight that which I cannot touch? How should I overcome that which is both adversary and ally? That's a key. Something that is an adversary and an ally, an enemy and friend. He's not sure. How should I perceive against one who appears to oppose me yet seeks my highest good, who wounds me yet heals me, who breaks me and yet makes me whole? And I entered into the paradox. This is where everything's starting getting heavy. The divine love where Jehovah, opposition of our flesh, becomes the advocacy of our spirit. But his wounding becomes his healing, where his breaking becomes our making. The figure that stood before me spoke not the words of flesh, but the voice that penetrated the very marrow of his bones, dividing the soul and spirit between the joint and marrow of his understanding, saying, put down that sword of flesh. But it's not avail thee in this place where the spirit governs matters and faith supersedes sight. Cast away thy shield of man's understanding, for it shall be as stubble before the fire of divine truth that burns away all that is not of me. Take up instead of the wrestling of spirit, which is not violent, but persistence, not conquest, but consecration. Fight not that destroys, but embrace that transforms. And the voice continued with authority and shook the foundation of the chamber, causing the very stones to cry with testimony of transformation. Embrace thy adversary as Jacob embraced the angel, not to overcome, but to be overcome. You follow me? Not to master, but to be mastered. Not to prevail through strength, but to prevail through surrender. But in the matrix of divine encounter, victory comes not to the strong, but to the persistent. Not the mighty, but to the meek. Not to those who fight against my will, but those who wrestle with my purpose. Blessing is secure. You guys are following me. Then Gabar understood that it's not an ordinary foe. It was the very word of Jehovah, was manifest, was made known. The same mysterious presence that wrestled with Jacob until the breaking of day, the angel, the messenger of the covenant who bear the name that is above every name. For as it is written, the deeper precept of the prophet Hosea, by his strength he had power with God, yea, he had power over angels, prevailed, he wept and made supplication with him. He wrestled, the wrestling chamber was not a place of battle, but a place of transformation. Not an arena for proven strength, but an altar of sacrificing self-will upon the fire of divine love. So we have to remember the vision. Behold, as the vision deepens, the matrix of spiritual reality becomes more clear. I saw that the chamber itself was alive, breathing with the rhythm of divine purpose, pulsing with the heartbeat of eternity. The walls pulse like a chamber, and mighty heart that pumps the lifeblood of heaven through the arteries of earth. And the floor was not cold stone, but it was warm earth that receiveth the seed of the word that bringeth forth fruit in its season. Psalm 30, Psalm 60, Psalm 100-fold. Each scar was upon the wall, told the story of another soul who had entered thinking to fight and had learned instead in replacement to wrestle. Thinking to conquer and had discovered instead replaced the victory that overcome through yielding. The very stone cried out with testimonies of those who had been broken in this place, made whole, who had died to themselves and found life everlasting, who had lost their lives for his sake and found them again transformed by divine grace. For it is written in the unorthodox precept of Ecclesiasticus, the heart of the wise teaches his mouth, and adds learning to his lips. And these stones have I learned to speak the wisdom of transformation. The figure that stood before Gebar began to reveal itself more clearly. And lo, it was the angel of the present, a messenger. The same divine messenger who appeared unto Moses in the burning bush, burned yet not consumed, who led Israel through the wilderness with a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night, who stood with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, heated 7 times hotter than it would not to be heated. All these things were there. We have to understand, yet there was no mere created being, but the very word of Jehovah, an angelic form, possessing all authority of heaven and earth, the same yesterday, today, forever. It is written in Exodus, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush, and he looked and remembered the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. This was the same present that can change names, destinies with the word, that can bless and can wound and can equal authority. that demanded not submission, but collaboration in the work of transformation. For as the wisdom of Baruch reveals, this is our God. There is one, there is none other, he accounted in comparison of him. He had found out all the ways of knowledge, and he have given unto Jacob his servant, Israel his beloved. In my own chamber of preparation, through many seasons of wrestling and secret place, in the secret place I learned is truth through many failures and defeat. Through seasons, I sought to fight my spiritual enemies with carnal weapons, with arguments of sharp as swords. It cuts both ways, with force and wheels as mighty chariots of Pharaoh. They were drowned in the Red Sea, with man reasoning swift as horses of Egypt. They could not overrun the judgments of Jehovah. Each time I entered in the wrestling chamber, armed with such weapons, they only grew stronger. This is going every time you go in that chamber. This matrix. You go in with the wrong weapons, it grows stronger. For every stroke of my carnal sword only fed their spiritual appetite for conflict. The matrix of deception thrives on carnal resistance, growing stronger with every attempt to fight on its own terms. You can see what's going on with this. You can see this oxymoron that happens to us on a daily basis. So the matrix of deception thrives on the carnal resistance, growing stronger on each attempt in terms. But I've learned to embrace the trial as from Jehovah's hand, to hold fast in prayer as Jacob held fast to the messenger, to refuse to let go until understanding came, like the drum breaking over the mountain of Gilead. Then the victory was achieved not through my strength, but through the superior power of him who cannot be defeated by, but delights in light to be embraced. The chamber taught me the spiritual wrestling. I learned in the art of the holy persistence without violence, the divine embrace without compromise, strength that is made perfect in weakness, and power that is perfect through surrender. As Paul learned his own wrestling chamber, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. So most gladly, therefore, I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Keep these in mind as we continue. The wrestling chamber is where we learn. Here. The mightiest victory is not the crushing of our adversary, but the transformation of enmity into intimacy, of resistance into relationship, of the fight that destroys into an embrace that creates. Here we discover that the matrix of this world system is not our true enemy, but a training ground where we learn to operate by spiritual law rather than natural law. Hopefully everybody understand that. Where we master the art of fighting without fighting, but learning to wrestle with Jehovah until his purpose is fulfilled in our lives. Thus said Jehovah, the wrestling chamber is my gift to those who would learn the art of fighting without fighting, where the matrix of the earthly illusion gives way to the reality of spiritual law, where the souls discover their greatest victory comes not through conquest, but through consecrated persistence in the secret place of the Most High. So we understand what went on. And I'm going to end it here. And some people are already removed. You won't be able to get back in today because I removed you because I don't know why people take upon themselves to follow rules that they shouldn't. So Sister Venus is going to put up the class link where people can go. And we're going to get ready for the Zoom session. As I said, we're going to go through what we was teaching. And we have Pretty Woman, and we have KJBU Kids. But I know 2 people was removed. You won't be able to get in. So with that, I say to each and every person, until we meet again, I say to each and every one of you, until then, shalom.